All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Business Spotlight. I am Scott McMeans with Action Coach SBL, and I am honored today to have David Keller from Keller National in Solon, Ohio. And we're going to spend some time learning a little bit about David, about Keller National, and what separates him from the marketplace. And if we could, we'll learn a little bit about the history. So, David, welcome to the show.
Yep.
And if I could, I'm going to turn the microphone and the camera over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how Keller National came to be.
Yeah. So first off, Scott, I appreciate you having me on your podcast. So it's truly a pleasure to be here. Now, I'll give you a little background on how I got into the insurance industry because it's probably not as common of what you may hear. So I was that kid in high school who was like, you know what I'm going to do later on in life is I'm going to go into the insurance industry. So in high school, I did a senior project with an agency. So a good friend of mine that I played hockey with, his dad owned an agency, and I had an opportunity to work with him for, it was probably about a week long for the senior project, and I just got to learn about the business. And it was very dynamic. There was a lot of moving parts. We were constantly talking to different business owners, and everything seemed to be different every single day, and it looked like they were having fun. And I was like, you know what, this might be something that I want to do. So when I will fast forward a little bit, in college, my final year of college, I got my insurance licensing and I started working with that agency. And
Oh,
it
wow.
was a fantastic opportunity to really learn the business. They sent me to an insurance school where I really got to drill down on different concepts in insurance and learn the sales process and really get a good grip on what it took to be successful in this business. So I'm very entrepreneurial in nature. So I start to get that itch. And like, you know what? I think I want to create something for myself. And I was at a very unique point in my life. I wasn't married yet and
Mhm.
didn't have a kid yet. And I do now, it's wonderful. But at this time, I didn't have those obligations. And I was able to take a chance and start my own business. So another interesting fact at that time was my dad was getting closer to retirement age, and his company that he was working for ended up getting acquired. So he was able to slide out a little bit early, which was fantastic. So in 2010, I got the opportunity to start a business with my dad. And
Mm,
that's what led us here today. So,
that's outstanding. And I love the idea that, okay, you didn't have any obligations, no wife, no kids. You had a young entrepreneurial spirit, and your father had an opportunity to open a door to let's do something together. What a great way to start a business because you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So I give you credit for taking that jump out of that plane and making this happen because not too many people have the hmm, internal fortitude to make something like this happen. So I give you credit for that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So walk me through what's it like working at Keller National? What's the environment like in the business? How does your day-to-day operations work? Tell us a little bit about Keller National.
Can I jump backwards to one thing that you said, and then you'll see I'll be able to tie it
Absolutely.
right into exactly what you are asking. So you mentioned jumping out of a plane, and jumping out of a plane is a very scary process, and entrepreneurs go through it fairly regularly. You wake up, you just don't know what you're going to run into during that day, and you don't know what you don't know. So all this goes into the whole culture dynamic. There is early on in business, we didn't really have a focused vision, a focused mission, or focused core values. And we had people taking the business this way and people taking it that way, but we weren't all rowing in the right direction. And in 2014, I had the opportunity to work with a fantastic technology company. And I'm looking at their business, and it's running like a very smooth machine. And they
Yeah.
had this fantastic culture with high standards surrounding their core values. And I was like, man, I want to figure out how to replicate that. So This client, this individual, he gives me a book called Traction. I'm sure many of
Hmm.
your viewers are familiar with it, and I just start to dissect the business. And from that, what we did was we developed a very focused vision statement, a strong
Hmm.
mission statement, and then we developed strong core values associated with other principles that basically became the defining factor of our culture. So the reality is, Scott, all businesses exist to solve a problem. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily to make money for the shareholders or the owners, it's to solve a problem for your customer. And what we needed to do was really pivot the entire organization to really being that doctor to understand what our customers' problems were, focusing in on customer needs first. That's one of our core values, and really dissecting what that problem is and just figuring out if we can be the solution for them. So you fast forward to today. A big part of our business is we talk about our vision. We talk about our
Yeah.
mission regularly. So protecting you, your family, and your business when you need us most, that's very meaningful to us and very meaningful to our team. And the core values, I mean, we seek to embody them in our day-to-day actions, and we look for that. We celebrate that within our team when they do something that embodies our core values.
That's outstanding. And I would imagine that rolls into the next question about what separates you from the other insurance brokers or insurance agencies in the marketplace. Walk me through how you see yourself being different than them. And is this a paradigm shift that you see changing the world of insurance, or is this something that is so unique to you that you're able to maintain that differentiation?
Right. So we're in a very unique climate in business, just in general. I mean, with technology, businesses are evolving so quickly and they're
Mm.
changing just overnight. And one of the big things is when we take on a business client, we need to be ahead of your business decision. So I want to make sure that I understand when you're going to make a major business decision. And I want to be part of that process for you. So you contact your accountant, you contact your lawyer, and you contact your insurance agent. I think that's pretty critical there. So basically what we do is this is all going to be dependent on the size of the business and what the client wants us to do. We have a proactive process that we walk through with that business either on a quarterly, every other month, semi-annual, or annual basis. So it really depends on how many moving parts that business has and what they actually need. But through the quarterly proactive meeting, it's higher level strategy. So we talk about their growth opportunities, their pain points. Are they losing employees? Are they growing their revenue? Are they shrinking? Are they in danger of experience any other competitor litigation? Anything along that line? We want to
Mm.
just be aware of those types of things and work with that business owner just to make sure we have all the right components in their insurance plan to protect them as they move forward. So the
So,
last thing I
David,
want to do, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, you do that on a quarterly basis.
It really depends on the business. So if there's a lot
Okay.
of moving parts, we may talk to a larger business that has a lot of moving parts. We may react to something every single day. They need to get a evidence of
Mhm.
insurance or they're changing a vehicle, whatever it may be. But the higher level proactive meetings that might need to be on a every other month basis or a quarterly basis, just depending on what their needs actually are.
Fantastic. And I think, well, I have to ask a question. The engagement from the client side, how would you best describe their level of engagement? And it's the reason I'm asking this question is, are they willful participants or do they come kicking and screaming to the table to have these conversations?
Well, it's a mix. So we
Okay.
do have some that will come kicking and screaming, but I think that when we do get together, they do find value in what that process actually
Mhm.
is. But when we take on a new business client, we talk about this and we want to make sure that it is important to them. So I want to make sure that we are always ahead of those business decisions. And if they don't want us to be involved at that level, it might not be the right fit. So,
Okay.
and that's fair. It's just one of those things that just depends on the business size, the level of involvement. But at the end of the day, we want to know what's happening in your business because that allows us to help build a
Mhm.
program to protect you properly.
Yeah, and I think you've made comment to this multiple times. You may not have used the same word, but I pull out from the conversation so far standards. You have a standard that Keller National is all about from your internal team. This is what we expect. This is how we work because of our vision, our mission, and the culture. The standard is Keller National. And then you've also established a certain amount of standard for the way you communicate and the way you work with your clientele. So they understand this is what it's like to work with David and the team at Keller National. So the standard is always set. And if people rise up to it, great. If they don't, do you fire an employee or do you train an employee to bring them back into the work force for you? And on the same tune, do you fire a client or do you work them back in? How does that work for you? Because it's a very interesting perspective because I believe in standards 100% as a business coach. To me, standards are what separates the good from the bad businesses. And if people are on the boat, they need to be rowing in the right direction. You made that comment earlier. So I'm curious, where is the standard set with respect to what you're willing and not willing to do?
Right, right. So everything comes back to training, and we have on a weekly basis, we do talk about standards, and we basically have a theme for every single week. Here's what you're really going to focus in on. Here's what I want to see come from your interactions with customers. So we're constantly having those conversations to help bring people's standards up and train people. And mainly the big thing there is if you are chasing a commission, you're going to lose. But if you are trying to solve a problem for a client, you will win. So truly be the solution. And if for some reason we're not, but you know somebody else that is, it's okay to pass them along to them. So I think that's important there is training the standard of, hey, listen, we're here to solve problems for the customer. And that is first
Yeah.
and foremost a very critical component of our process. And then going over to the client side. So we have all different size clients. We have larger construction firms that do highways and roads, all the way down to smaller single person hairstylists. So, and you look at some of the smaller ones, they're not going to need that ongoing quarterly proactive review process. So it's the larger ones that really are going to need that type of process. And if they're unwilling to engage on that level, we might not be the right fit because things
Yeah.
change in a business constantly. And from your endeavors working with entrepreneurs is we have shiny metal object syndrome, and it is very easy for an entrepreneur to just say, oh, you know what, I want to try that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that we want to be aware of you trying that because that could change everything in your insurance program.
100%. And focus needs to be a huge part of the standards that people have when they work with you, whether that's a client or somebody within the firm of Keller National. You want to make sure focus is in the right location or the right area that you're trying to get to. It's interesting. You're right. The shiny object, we call them squirrels. Like
Squirrels.
everyone wants to divert and go after a squirrel, right?
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about challenges and what is it that's made you better as a business owner, and what kind of challenges would you earmark to say that's something I went through and I learned from it? Because I'm trying to give our audience something they can hang their hat on to say, you know what, I've been through that and that's a great solution. So walk me through some challenges, David, that you may have had
Right.
and how you solved them so we can see how you forged your way through the navigation of Keller National to where it is today.
Right, right. So I think that it's true for every entrepreneur that you are going to fail your way to success, and you have to recognize those failures as an opportunity to really learn. And let's go back to about 2014, 15, 16 time frame. We were writing a very unprofitable insurance program. unprofitable for our business, unprofitable for the insurance providers that we were working with. And what we did there, or what was basically going on, is we were taking on these accounts and they were fairly large and fairly distressed. And
Mhm.
because of that, a lot of them would go out of business. And so it was very tough to develop a predictable revenue model out of that. And ultimately, it was really hurting our balance sheet. So I went through a program back in 2016. It was 10,000 small businesses, the Goldman Sachs
Mhm.
program. And during that program, we did a deep dive into my business. And part of it was we took a deeper look at that particular program and we really unpacked its unprofitability. So, what we did there, I'm going to go back to that word standard. We started to
Mhm.
put some standards in place. We will write in this industry segment if they meet this criteria.
Yeah.
If we don't meet that criteria, then we're going to have to pass on it. So it was a difficult decision to essentially pull the plug on this particular program because the dollars coming in were very large, but they were just they were really hurting our bottom line in a very, very big
Mhm.
way. So it was tough, but once you really start to do the math and take a look at your P&Ls just specifically for that program, it made sense to eliminate that. So fast forward to today, looking at a client, we want to make sure that they do check the appropriate boxes. They're not doing things that are going to get them in, what's the right word for this, trouble that is not a spontaneous occurrence, because that's why we exist, right? So tree falls on your building or you catch on fire.
Right.
But if you're doing things that are unacceptable, that could be a different issue. So we do look for people to have best practices in place when we do write their accounts. So
What I find interesting, I appreciate the story. And from my listening and just taking notes here, I pull out the idea of if you chase a commission, you will lose. Great tag. If you solve a problem, you will win. And what's interesting about the challenge story you just told us is you went introspective to Keller National and solved your own problem, right? And
right.
I would assume that same philosophical approach goes to working with a client that's having a problem either making their payment or understanding their policy, and you dive into it. You dissect what's actually going on. You uncover what is needed versus what is wanted, and then you give an appropriate program that solves the problem that is what they're dealing with. It's very similar to what you did to yourself is like, listen, we're writing a policy that doesn't make sense because we're losing money on it. Why would we continue doing this? Let's solve our own problem. That's a testament to your own standards. It's a testament to your own ability to take a look at your business. And what I would say, and for anybody listening, it's a great lesson for everybody to learn from because solving your own problems is the first step in solving somebody else's problems. And if you're able to do that, other people will want you to solve their problems as well. So kudos to you. And I think that's something that separates Keller National from anybody else is simply because you're capable of solving a problem, whether it's yours or somebody else's. You can dissect a problem very astutely and get to the bottom line that says, this is the best way to move forward. So I give you that. That's great.
I appreciate that.
Um, when it comes to the type of people and the environment that you have at Keller National, how would you describe again, you did a nice job of describing the culture, the vision, and the mission. I'm curious, what's the day-to-day like? Um, do you have certain meetings throughout the day? Is there a certain standard that you set for the way people communicate? I'm curious, what's at Keller National that separates the way you do business in-house?
Right, right. So we do a weekly team meeting, and this is
Mhm.
basically something we do Monday mornings to get everybody on the same page. And there may be some larger industry issue or something that occurred that we just want to bring up to make people aware of. And I mean, this can be, so I don't know how much you know about the insurance industry right now, but it's having some challenges across
Mhm.
the country. And we try to stay ahead of that. So we we want to talk about that in our Monday meetings with our team, because when they are faced with these questions from our client base, we want to give them some ammo to basically deal with that,
Yeah.
right? So we get everybody on the same page in that meeting and basically develop this strategy to execute for that week. And then Tuesday, I mentioned we are on EOS, so we do our L10 meeting.
Yeah.
So I have that this afternoon. It's Tuesday today. And that's more higher level. We make sure that we're on track for the greater strategy for the year, and then looking into that 3-year picture as well. So we do try to keep us moving in that direction, and then unpack any higher level issues that we may have as well. So we have a important things list and an ongoing issues list, and we'll talk through those things and start to delegate out the critical tasks to resolve those. And then throughout the week, there's smaller micro meetings. These are very short. These are huddles. And it may just be just to address a very quick thing. Hey, here's what's going on in the commercial space. You should be aware of this, or here's a new, like, simple tweak to this process we want to just make you aware of. So,
Yeah.
and we'll do those typically 10 minutes, maybe less, once a week at least. So.
That's good. I think the opportunity to have the team together on a weekly basis to handle the big stuff. And then throughout the course of the week, you called them huddles. I've always been a big fan of hallway conversations, right? Walking past somebody in the hallway, say, "Hey, David, what's the situation with this?" And you solve it right there on the
Right.
spot. And you don't wait for another meeting, because when you wait for a meeting, you're missing the opportunity to solve it. So I like the idea that you put this all together in such a very formulated way, because again, you go back to, if you're solving problems, you need to have the ammunition necessary to solve problems. And you go through big issues, you communicate to your team, and then they get a chance to go forth and execute what the plan is. When you have those level of standards, and this is what I think is probably most telling for the audience, is build yourself a business that has a foundation of standards, and everything falls in place very easily, because you have a standard that says this is supposed to be here, that's supposed to be there. It makes it easy to operate your business when you operate it from a perspective of, does it or does it not fit the standard? And I give you kudos for that. I've one last question for you. Okay. If you were to go back in time and sit down on a park bench next to the 18-year-old David Keller, what would you tell yourself?
See, that's a tough question there. And the big thing there is, if I went back and I said, "Hey, here's what you need to know," I wouldn't have experienced all the stuff that I experienced that got us where we are today. So that's always a
Okay.
tough question. And I think this can, for all entrepreneurs out there, I think in the early days, you can lose sleep over a lot of minor issues. And you may think it is a business ending or just this devastating issue, and it's probably not. So I think the biggest thing is, ask yourself, do I have a 5-minute problem, or do I have a 5-year problem? This is a lifetime
Mhm.
problem. And when you can really detach from that issue and see it for what it is, never worse than what it is, you can really move forward in a different manner. So that'd be the biggest thing.
That's awesome. I love the 5 minute, 5 year, or lifetime, because that's a time frame you can deal with. Do I need to deal with it right now, or do I need to deal with it when it's appropriate to deal with it? So amazing amount of information and lessons learned, David. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you spending the time with us. Any final words for the audience?
You know, I think that the climate is changing, and in business in general, and it's easy to get distracted out there. And I think the important thing is just make a list of your critical tasks and execute on that list, and it'll just move you closer to your goals. And just do that every single day throughout the chaos of the climate, and you'll win. So I think that's the big thing.
Could not say it any better. What a great way to end the episode. Thank you, David, for being a part of the Business Spotlight. And I welcome everybody to take a click, learn a little bit more about David Keller and Keller National. And we'll see you all on the next episode of the Business Spotlight. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.